everybody. Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having a great Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell. I want to welcome you to another great episode of The Color of Motion. I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades. And I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. This space that after, if you haven't seen last week, us celebrating our 200th episode, you don't know by now, then I don't know what to tell you. But yes, last week we had an amazing party and fun celebrating our 200th episode. And now we continue the march on. We only got a few more episodes left in this season, and we close out season 5 and head into season 6. So super, super excited about today's episode. Wow, we had a great time last week. Today's episode is going to be more fun because I've been trying to get this one on the books for a while now, but cannot wait. I always encourage everybody. Like I said, we are live on the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show. But I always encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube channel, get plugged in, subscribe, hit the bell notification, all that good stuff. That's where all the content goes, and definitely be a part of the community as well. As I was saying, we've had a lot of big things going on this season. Last week, celebrated 200. Another big announcement. We are now on Spotify and some of the other big audio platforms now. Now you can find us on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. So definitely looking forward to seeing how, my audio viewers tune in and show up. Definitely you downloading, commenting, liking, all that good stuff helps Spotify and all the other channels, know that, hey, you like the content. So super excited about that. I've been, working to get that together for quite a while. You know what I always say? Hop into the comments, say, hey, where you tuning in from, because I always say that this is an interactive show. And I always like to give a shout out to all my viewers as well. Definitely want to give a shout out to today's sponsor for the show, and always a great sponsor, DG Graphics. They do all the graphics, animations, overlays, and all that stuff. I say basically they help the brand. Good. And if you're a business or a brand that's looking to really level up your brand content, then definitely give DG Graphics a look for sure. Appreciate them always sponsoring. Also, I'm trying to be diligent about really pushing, supporting the channel. Definitely, you helping to continue, helping support the channel helps me to continue to bring great content. So definitely, buymeacoffee.com/Don Terrell. There you can donate whatever you choose. Like I said, it all goes to help me continue to create great content. I have a Patreon, but I'm still putting that together. So until then, you can help support me by buying me a coffee. And I love, anybody who knows me knows I love a great cup of coffee. Awesome. All right. Let me throw this up before we press on. Me Inc. 62. Appreciate you tuning in and showing up for sure. Hopefully this is not the last time. So thank you for tuning in. What else? I think I got all of the great, kind of housekeeping stuff out the way. So I'm looking forward to, again, getting this episode on the road. What do you say? We are back, back, back. And like I said, I am so super excited and so looking forward to this episode. We were chatting before we started the show that I've been trying to get him on since I connected or found out about it, the organization that he's a part of a couple of years now. So looking forward to sitting down and having a fun conversation with my next guest and friend. He is a storyboard artist, character designer, teacher, and activist. Born in New York, moved to LA at age 7. So he has an interesting cocktail of Valley Kid and New Yorker personality. So that's going to be fun. He initially wanted to do comics and wanted to work as a cartoonist for his college newspaper at 18. Common thread, something in common. So I'm looking forward to diving into that as well. After winning some awards, he went over to the Disney College program, not art related, where he was encouraged to pursue animation. He applied to Sheridan shortly after his program ended, and now he's a professional. His first animation job was at Disney Television Animation, and now runs the nonprofit Black and Animated while still working in the industry. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Austin Faber.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello. It's me. I don't know. I don't do intros.
Awesome. Hey, we like to bring our guests in like the superstars that they are. And like I was telling you beforehand, I'm super excited to finally get you on the show and sit down and have a conversation with you there, Austin.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Don, for having me. I've been following the show for some time, so I'm excited to jump right in and have
Awesome.
a nice
Awesome.
chat.
That makes me feel good to know that you've been, checking out some of the episodes. I always like to start, especially since we kind of have this kindred spirit of wanting to be a cartoonist and comic strip artist. What was it that kind of initially got you geeked? Because I know for me, it was Peanuts. Charles Schultz. I was just a Peanuts and Charles Schultz nut, and so that's what just initially just got me off into art and wanting to be a comic strip artist and everything like that. Was there something that initially kind of drew you and that, you just, it just made you want to do it?
Yeah, actually, there were a couple. Funny enough, I used to have this old like Felix the Cat like
Mm,
comic that I would read when I was very very young. But in terms of like, in terms of the actual, because I love the 30 style. I loved I loved old Disney. I loved like Fleischer.
yeah,
It's so
Fleischer.
so old, like anything like Felix, Betty Boop, all that was great. Popeye, but in particular, in terms of the comic strips, I loved like I loved Dennis the Menace. The Nancy comic strips were some of my favorites too.
Yeah.
Thought she was fascinating, and probably the biggest one I would say is like a very typical answer, which is Calvin and Hobbes. Peanuts. I used to watch the Charlie Brown specials because that used to be that's actually my dad's favorite favorite cartoon. He's a huge fan of Snoopy.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
yes, I remember
Well,
growing
a
up.
lot of people get into that, like you said, are kind of those, but they forget about the Beetle Bailey, the Hagger the
Yeah,
Horrible, all of those Wizard of Id, all of those great cartoons, comics, Blondie,
yeah,
great comic strips that
asterisk.
were, yeah,
Yeah,
Asterix, yeah,
no, exactly. No, those are all great. Casper, I loved as well. Just like there's a plethora. I can go on forever about comic strips and kind of comics, but I also was super influenced by manga. Like
okay,
I love the actual style of a lot of like American comic strips because they were a little more simplistic. They were really well designed, incredibly dynamic, and I loved manga because the stories were super in depth. They were a lot more. I think they had a little more emotional texture. I think for
yeah,
me, at least in the late '90s, early 2000s, when I started to like get into anime and manga. So I sort of wound up blending the two. My love for like old comic strips and like shonen style storytelling, which is where you get my mishmash of styles, you could say.
Well, how do you feel like? because you said you're born in New York and you didn't come out to LA or go out to LA until 7. How do you feel like New York kind of shaped your artistic style and your look and view on just art and illustration and cartoons and comics? Because obviously graffiti, that's kind of the, I guess, the home,
Yeah,
kind of the home center of where graffiti kind of. I don't think it's. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna say. I'm pretty sure there are other graffiti artists that would argue with that. But
yeah.
obviously, New York is known for graffiti and starting that kind of graffiti style art. How did New York kind of, if at all, kind of shape your artistic view?
That's a good question. I mean, because I was raised by New Yorkers, whether or not I even moved. So, and it's interesting because I wasn't so much influenced by, I would say, New York visual art, although I definitely was in some degree. Like, I loved like the, Basquiat,
Yeah.
Herring, all that. But I was really moved by like the music.
Mm,
Funny thing, I loved listening to '90s like house music. I like was a huge admirer of rap,
yeah.
particularly like that like '90s rap, and I loved that it had a strong point of view. Like it was saying something. It was very timely, but
Yeah.
not dated. You know what I mean? And I think that's what sort of influenced my art because I always loved hearing like rap or seeing, somebody do perform even in the like the visual arts, like on theater or dance. And I
Yeah.
just loved how expressive it was, and I wanted to take a little bit of that and put it into my art.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
so that's I think where the New Yorker came in. New York is very eclectic. It's super innovative, and I think those values were sort of imbued in my artistic spirit from an early age, just through observation.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's the one unique thing about New York. It has such a blending, melting pot of art, music, so many different things that kind of feed into each other. As you know, like you
Yeah,
said, graffiti. New York is kind of the mother of graffiti.
it
I guess
is
the mother of hip hop. I mean, hip hop kind of grew from New York and the Bronx kind of area. New York style,
exactly.
California style. But again, it had this sense of it kind of grew from there, and so it had this blend of obviously art, dance, pop locking, rapping, just melding together. Graffiti art just melding together. So I'm pretty sure it was a unique place. Obviously, you had artists, as you mentioned, Basquiat, come out of there and just give this unique blend. But as you said, had a point of view and was saying a message. I think that's what's obviously lost about a lot of the rap
Yeah,
today and music today is back then it was really street oriented and it had a message of what was going on and what was going on around people type of thing.
yeah, exactly. Like hip hop and rap is it's super nuanced as an art form, even amongst music. And I think it's partially because it's like at its root, it's poetry, and poetry is a very raw form of self-expression.
Yeah.
Similar. I mean, all art forms can be super raw. You know, but that's something that I found myself drawn to. From the I would say New York art scene, and I wasn't really a part of the New York art scene much. I was there when I was very young. I just remember picking up on little things when
Yeah.
we would go walking. I would see things when we would go passing by, like different neighborhoods. I would see how different cultures like lived. I was super fascinated by that. I watched a lot as a kid. I was very quiet, so I just like listened a lot and I just looked a lot.
Yeah. Well, how
So
did your parents notice early on your kind of love and passion for just the
yeah,
art and how did they help to kind of encourage that?
so that's a very interesting question because I think for the most part my entire family knew before I did.
Mm,
Because I didn't really know what an art path looked like. Because I'm one of the first artists in my family.
really?
Uh, my grandpa was a musician, and my uncle is like a visual artist. But for the most part, my family is comprised of like mostly academics.
Yeah.
There's some that work in like the transportation industry, like and all that. But I didn't really have a roadmap for what that looked like, and neither did they. But they noticed very early. VCR once.
Yeah.
I broke the I think I broke the VCR because I was like putting my toys in there, and my mom was sitting there just like she was actually kind of impressed because she knew what my 3-year-old brain was trying to do. I was trying to put my toys in so they could appear on the TV, like the cartoons I'd watch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they definitely identified that. I don't think they had the tools to really help me once I got a little older. When I was younger, it's easy just to be like, "Oh, you want to play with that thing, or you want to draw on the floor? All right." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, but once I got to, I think middle school, high school age, I think they really struggled because my academics were starting to take a slip, and most of that was just because of the way my brain works. I'm very
Yeah.
much a tactile learner. I have to know how things apply. So I did really well in school in my early years, but once I got old enough and I started to question things, I'm just like, why am I doing this history project? You know what I mean? Like why?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not even that because I mean, and the answer was like because you have to, and I was like, but doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah,
like
my brain, it doesn't make sense in my brain why I need to do this.
exactly. Well, I couldn't see the end goal because I was like,
Yeah.
no, I think this is America in general. Like I didn't really have a good idea of how this would apply in
Yeah,
now I do as an
practical
adult.
application for it. It's like, why do I need to learn Shakespeare? And I know practically I'm not going to be, kind of quoting Shakespeare. That's, I guess, the methodology of it. I'm not really going to be using it. And I guess there are some people that feel that that is kind of the, I guess, flaw of the education system. There's a lot of stuff in there that's, not practical stuff that really teaches people or teaches kids to be ready to come into society and function within society. The practical tools, like they should be teaching some real serious financial
Yeah,
classes, financial classes to kids.
yeah. Financial literacy,
Yeah,
especially. Yeah,
financial literacy, type
yeah.
of thing.
That'd be huge. But honestly, it wasn't until like maybe my senior year, funny enough, I was leaving high school, that I had a teacher who's actually now the principal of my high school. He's fantastic. Shout out to Mr. McClanahan. He's probably not
Mr.
watching this, but
McClanahan, shout out to you.
yeah, no, he's great. Funny enough, he also went to NYU. I think the same time my mom was there. I
Mm,
don't think they knew each other though. But no, he was one of the few teachers. I had a few teachers that at my high school that saw what I was going through, and they were a little more sympathetic. And I still, I still see them. But he actually told me that like the point of school wasn't like he's like you're not going to use calculus, like you're never going to need that. It's about like it's the training of the brain. It's like football practice. Like you're never going to need to like do 20 weird cartwheels or
yeah,
laps in a game, but it's just training your body to be ready for a game.
yeah, yeah.
Training your
Plus,
brain
it's
to
the
think.
other things, I guess, as far as teamwork and the other principles that you learn along
Exactly.
with that, working together, that type of thing.
Yeah, but he was the first person to kind of put it, and it clicked for me at the end of high school. He was just when he's put it like that, I was like, oh, okay, so this is literally just training, and that's all I needed. And then like as soon as high school ended, I began to excel because I understood how important building those skills actually were. And that's when I signed up for my school newspaper at my college, applied to the Disney College program, I got a part-time job. Like I started going from like, you know, high school sort of under the radar, like struggling in school and, not even doing that much art because I didn't really know that was
Yeah.
allowed. And to kind of like my trajectory went upwards really quickly as soon as I had like autonomy and I could
Yeah.
make my own decisions.
Well, at that point in high school and, kind of leading up to high school, did you have any, you know, other notion of what you wanted to do or, could do outside of art, because you didn't think that there was I guess, an applicable way of applying your love and passion for art at that time, until then. But was there anything else that you thought, well, if I didn't do art, maybe this would be the thing that I would be good at doing or have a passion or joy for doing?
It's actually really funny because my high school years were super conflicted where I was thinking about that. I was like, okay, what are some other things I could like get into? My family's very practical, so they always think about like having a plan B and C.
Yeah.
and while I did have a sub skill in teaching that I noticed from an early age, like being a TA or teaching like young kids, like I
Yeah,
noticed I had that skill. I honestly never really considered anything else seriously, and that sounds like crazy to say looking back because you know I was actively trying to look at other avenues, but I didn't. There was nothing else that moved me.
yeah,
I knew I had to do something within the arts
yeah.
because you know the only thing that brought me like joy and brought me peace.
Well, was it the Disney, the getting into that program that really made a big shift in your trajectory, do you feel, into the
Oh,
industry or
yeah. Oh, 100%. I would credit the college program to really solidifying my path. Even though it wasn't art related, it was the first time I
well,
got to
before you go
be.
on, what was it? I
Oh,
mean, what was it?
oh,
It wasn't art
oh,
related.
sure.
What
Yeah. So, I mean, it still exists today. So, the Disney College program is essentially like a semester long or 2 semester long internship with the Walt Disney Company to specifically the parks.
oh,
And at the time, there was the Disney World College program and the Disneyland here in Anaheim program. Identical, but the Anaheim one was a lot smaller, a little more focused. And I knew they were very competitive because people apply like multiple times to get in. So
yeah,
I didn't even get in my first time when I heard about it, fresh out of high school. And essentially, it's just a day job at the park. So you work at the park as a cast member in any department, and then on the side, you take classes with Disney executives. You live in Disney housing with other college program folks, and they occasionally give you like intern perks, like tours at the animation studio,
yeah,
or like behind the scenes looks at like the attractions at the resort, so things like that. But it
yeah,
was really
yeah,
it felt like a mini training program just to get away from home and meet other like-minded folks.
yeah,
And I would say that's what got me off my or onto my trajectory
yeah.
because it was sort of like, first of all, that's my first time living away from home. Getting to
Yeah, yeah,
move.
that'll do it.
Yeah, so first there was that, so I had that freedom. In addition, that's also the year I came out as queer, so I was also kind of coming to terms with that. And then lastly, even though it was like a college experience, the college program was a little more specific
Yeah,
because everyone you were living with was selected to participate in the college program. So everyone had something. Everyone
yeah,
had some sort of goal or some sort of ambition, or they were in school or wrapping up college. Most of them were older than I was. I think me and my roommates were among the younger group because we were like still teenagers.
yeah,
But yeah, I would say like that. Just being around people like that help set the framework for like, oh, this is what I want to do that too. This is what
yeah.
successful students look like.
Well, I, I'm curious. Before you got into the program, was there a misconception that was dispelled once you got into the misconception that you thought about the industry or just, what it would be like, you know, going in the industry and kind of finding your path, even though, like you said, it wasn't art related? Was there something that you kind of thought beforehand that was kind of dispelled once you went through the program and your journey was getting out and you started to see the path before you?
Actually, yeah. Um, I didn't, and honestly, I love hard mode. I love working hard. I didn't realize how much work went into animation. Like, because even though, yeah, the college program wasn't art
Yeah.
related, plenty of the executives they know the animators from the animation like portion of the industry. They've worked with artists, so they were actually the ones that told me to pursue animation. And
Mm,
like at the end of our classes at the college program, they were like, "Hey, you might want to explore that. It seems like not only you have a passion for it, but they saw my current skill level. Like even though I was mostly self taught, they were like, you might be a candidate for some of these like art schools.
yeah.
Like
Well, were you
Cal."
thinking before they told you that, were you thinking of a path of, as you were going through the program, were you thinking of a path that you were going to go down before they mentioned, well, you should think about animation?
Actually, yeah, and it was funny because like I was planning on going to RISD for illustration,
Oh, okay.
Mostly because the creators of Avatar: Last Airbender went there. So I was like, I wanted to go there, and I wanted to go back to the East Coast because I missed the seasons. I wanted to like, so that it made sense.
Yeah.
But but no, it was actually my teachers at Disney that were like, they did encourage RISD, but they just thought for me, they were like, we think CalArts or Sheridan might be a better fit for your personality, and I didn't know what that meant at the time. But so
Yeah.
they actually let me go visit CalArts on my day off, and I got to meet students and I got to see the art, and I was just like, my mind was blown because I was like, you guys, what? I'm just like, this is the thing. You've been working on this for how long? That's insane. It was crazy because again, I had no proximity to animation or art students all throughout my
Yeah.
entire life. It's my
Yeah.
first time seeing it, so it was fantastic.
Which brings up such a great point that you just said. Proximity does wonders for a child's imagination of what's possible. And I think that there needs to be more of that in schools. More professionals, especially professionals of color, going back into classrooms to really show, what's possible. Because again, there's another mentor of mine. He talks about it a lot. Proximity equals power. Because
Yeah.
you're not really, be able to do anything or make moves until you're really close to the ones that are making those moves and doing things. So, yeah, that was a great thing. Hey, while I'm thinking about that, that's a good thing. Drop a bomb on. I can't
I'm
let these
excited.
bombs go by. That was a good nugget that you dropped there. Proximity means a
Yeah.
lot for sure. Um, how has obviously some of the skills as far as just outside of art related and animation related, maybe business related or organizational, we were talking about beforehand, just the ability of learning how to manage um, people and creatives and things. uh, how has that been, um, in your journey with BNA and building BNA, and what's been the biggest lesson that you've kind of pulled um, building this organization and along with your journey in the industry, because you're in a unique position of building an organization that's got a specific mission and a specific goal, but you're also participating in the industry and having to deal with the challenges of what the
Oh
organization
yeah.
is really talking about, type of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I could definitely talk about that a little bit. I could start with like the foundation of BNA
Yeah.
and sort of like just a quick like refresh on where it came from, where it is now, all that. So BNA was initially founded as a podcast. So this is like before my time. BNA was started as a podcast by two people named Bree and Wayman. They kind of started really strong and they kind of continued strong because they kind of turned BNA more into like a community space, like a Discord.
Yeah.
And they did some like early small events. They weren't a nonprofit yet, but they were just like, they just created the space. And then, long story short, 2020 happened, and that kind of drained the very little resources BNA had. So Bree basically asked me to come on, like sometime a little bit after 2020, I think 2021 or 2022, because she wanted me to come in and like help rebrand or help just restructure the org or just help her
Yeah.
out. And the idea was that I would come in, give the brand like a refresh. And when I came on, I realized how strong the need was. Like got to connect with some of the members, and I saw how much BNA was like. It was like the only thing we had. So I was like, all right, if we're gonna do this, we gotta do it right.
Yeah.
So I came on. I was like, first things first, we gotta become a nonprofit. So I filed to do that. We hired a brand new team because Bree wanted to step down. So I came on. That's when like also Monique came in, and we like hired a bunch of people, started from scratch. New logo. I designed the mascot for BNA, and since then, we've sort of completely transformed. We're now like a very focused organization where like our tagline is black butts and seats.
Yeah.
Like we're trying to get people jobs, we're trying to get people opportunities, and not just get them the jobs and check a box. We want to make sure people can keep these opportunities
Yeah.
indie included,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not just about getting people jobs at Disney.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about, yeah, getting people proximity, getting people close to not just even the people, even though it's definitely that. It's getting them close to the information. It's the stuff I wish I had.
Yeah.
When I was coming in, like I said, I went to CalArts and I was like, I had no idea it was that deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like giving people the opportunity to have that kind of access does wonders for the creative mind
Yeah.
and the creative spirit, especially since, for Black folk, a lot of us are very risk averse. A lot of parents are risk averse because the
Yeah.
arts isn't super lucrative.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of talented, exceedingly talented Black folks that just didn't have the support system. It's not exactly their fault. It's like
Yeah.
not my fault either. It's
Yeah.
like our parents just want us to like get the
Yeah. They
bag.
just want you to. They just want you to do good and be able to survive and have benefits and all that kind of stuff. And the typical stuff. Parents, they just want you to be safe, and they can't see that, or it's hard for them to see in art and animation and things like that, the creative space, unless they've seen it or been exposed to it themselves. They're not gonna want to take that leap and let you do it, type of
I will.
thing.
Yeah, you're right. And I will say, actually, I will give my parents some credit where credit is due, because I think they had a little bit of the Black parent thing where they're like, okay, let's make sure you have like, you know,
A backup.
you have yourself together. But I think they also knew that I was opinionated. I think that's the thing they were really not worried about, but it's like I was quiet, confident, and had a lot of thoughts.
Yeah,
And they're like, especially as a young Black boy, they're looking at me like, "Oh, the boy, that's gonna
yeah,
be
yeah.
when you're older, you're gonna have some problems."
But I,
Like,
but I think that's a really good thing when you have somebody that recognizes that and can see that and encourages that. Like I said, I always say, while my mother, she was great. She didn't necessarily could visualize how I would make a living. Saying I wanted to be a comic strip artist type of thing or a cartoonist. She didn't discourage it, and she made it an effort to really give me the resources. Like, hey, here's an art school, and as hard as it was, she paid for it and made sure. And I was fortunate enough to have art teachers in school that saw a talent and encouraged it and recommended colleges or scholarships to apply for. So it's always good. You always have to have a champion. Otherwise, it's easy, like you said, to kind of fall into that. Well, I better find something safe or, that type of thing.
yeah, no, you're right. I don't even know what that was for me. It was, I think, maybe just delusion. I was kind of like, I was just my own. I don't for the early part. I was kind of like, I was sort of my own cheerleader for some time, because I was just like, I was just really focused on getting into art school. Like after
Yeah,
the college program, after I saw CalArts and after I met the students, I was just like, I need this. I need to do this. I don't know how
yeah,
long it's gonna take. It'll take me 4 or 5 years. I don't know.
yeah.
I'm gonna get it done.
Now
Yeah.
I think that's like that for a lot of artists. When you finally see the community and like, wow, okay, there's so many other creators and people like that. You just, like you said, you don't want to turn back, and you're just solely focused on how can I get into this industry and how can I get and stay connected. I want to make sure I don't not ignore all my viewers for everybody just joining us. We're having an amazing conversation with my friend and guest, Mr. Austin Faber, story artist and director with Black and Animated. Men, hi, Koja, aka Lightfoot, aka
Oh boy,
Snoopy, aka number. You got a lot of AKAs in there for
that that's
sure.
that's that's
Mr.
that's my mom.
Dwan, happy Saturday to you there, brother. Down in Austin. I've been sipping with my cool new. Remember, you got to send a photo of the mug that you won last week on our 200th episode. So make sure you send us a photo so that we can display it there. But I appreciate you, brother, for tuning in. Mr. Monique, my son, made an entire family of, like I
Oh
said,
God,
mer people from a very early age. There was never any doubt that he would have a career in art. This must be your mother. So
this is
proud of
my
my
mom.
son.
Yes.
That's
Jesus.
awesome. That is awesome. Like I said, sometimes, parents have a hard time seeing, how it can pan out. But as long as you encourage it and don't discourage it, then it'll manifest itself how it should. So appreciate you supporting your son and tuning in and supporting the show for sure. Black and Animated was a great podcast. My favorite episode was their interview with Bruce Smith. Yeah, I've been trying to get him on too. I've asked him a couple times. Hopefully, get him on. It's only now that I'm realizing that we branded the podcast into keeping you animated. Awesome. I'm
Yeah.
curious, how have you, since you first gotten connected with Black and Animated, and how have you found the industry now? Obviously, with what the goal is of Black and Animated, how have you found just your mission and the accomplishment of it, or of it, whether you feel like you haven't quite accomplished the things that you wanted to do? I mean, obviously, there's a lot going on in the industry. There's a lot of artists that are going through changes and kind of having to kind of define themselves or refigure
Yeah.
things out, especially with studios and companies kind of downsizing, upsizing, at will type of thing. Um, do you feel like this time, and is this a thing that Black and Animated may be focused on moving forward? This notion of creators now looking inward as far as monetizing their own content and getting it out there, and working in that route as opposed to constantly trying to get into Disney, because it's not just you now, and it's not just your college student or your comrades from Savannah and all that. You're competing worldwide now with people trying to get that one or two spot, you know.
Right.
And we live in a time now where we have all of these channels, these softwares, these avenues to where we can now directly monetize our audience and connect with our audience type of thing. Is that something that Black and Animated thinks about, or have you thought about kind of moving
Oh,
forward?
absolutely. Yeah. You brought up a lot of good touch points, actually. I will say, like, just to start, tooting BNA's horn just a little bit is that BNA is an artist-led organization.
Yeah.
Like, first, like, that's something that I'm very proud to say.
Yeah.
Because partially, it's because it's not even just me within BNA that's an artist. Like, our director of operations was like my art mentor. Shout out to
Yeah.
Brittany Winthrop if she's watching. Um, but no, honestly, it's like that sort of is what feeds the integrity of everything that BNA does. I myself came from a competitive background. I went to a competitive art school. I did all the work. I excelled. I got to Disney. So I know what that looks like as a young professional. So that's like really what we bring at BNA. It's that context, that proximity, and that drive. But at the same time, we're smart and we read and we
Yeah.
read the room. So we've constantly had to adapt. When BNA started in 2018, that was a vastly different industry. Even the podcast was sort of a way not just to elevate, working Black professionals, but it was a
Yeah.
way to, you know, give folks that wanted to break in, particularly Black folks, just like help them feel closer to it, like help them feel like, hey, you can be a part of this. It's not that, you know,
Yeah.
it's not as far out of reach. And part of why I came in, part of this new era of BNA was kind of them realizing they could not, you know, they didn't have the structure to meet the new needs. Like
Yeah.
BNA no longer could just be a podcast and a social group. Now needed a safe space. We needed a haven, a place where creators can come and not just create, but almost like start forming our own ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's where BNA is now. Like
Yeah.
we're not just like there to get, like I said, get people just jobs.
Yeah.
We're really like we're more of a hub,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No, that's why I've been so trying to get you on, since I come across BNA because I knew we were kind of aligned in what we were trying to do, not just expose people to job opportunities, but be a hub for just building a community of creators that can work together and work on their own ideas and learn from each other type of thing. um, and like I was telling you before, I was fortunate enough to have Monique Henry Henderson on. part of Black DNA, and looking forward to having her back on. Um, but do you feel like there's a gap when it comes to still the executive, more higher level executives, as opposed to the actual people that are doing the animation, and, doing the directing type of thing? And that's always kind of been my thing. Yeah, I love, you know, talking with the animators and writers and things like that, but I want to talk to more higher level executives about the changes and things and moves that are being done as far as bringing in more diversity, especially in this time now where we're seeing a lot of the diversity things being struck down, how hard it is. Can you kind of speak
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And well, first I have to say I have a question. So when you say executives, do you mean like the typical like studio
Like,
executives? Or are you talking like
obviously, they want more people in there that can, that are green lighting the shows, that are saying, yeah, let's do this show. We want to do this, and really back the show in green lighting. That's what I mean as far as the decision makers, more of the decision makers and higher level executives that are green lighting and really getting these more diverse stories and creators
right?
into more proximity type of spaces.
So that's interesting you say that because so that was happening for a bit during like the gold rush of animation, which was like you could argue is between well, you could argue it was like earlier than this, but for the sake of argument, 2018 to like 2021,
Mm-hmm.
that was like the small golden age of like streaming. 20 things are getting greenlit, and then 18 of those were like canceled
Yeah,
by 2021, 2022. I was a part of a lot of those. I was part of that wave. Worked on The Witch Boy by Mingyu Lee
yeah,
and Shi Kim, which was a huge push for you know for just like leads of color, I would
yeah,
say. And I worked on Jessica's Big Little World, which was run by a black woman showrunner. I worked on, and I saw a lot of stuff in development just out of multiple studios because we all talk, all the
yeah,
people at the studios talk. So I saw things in development. I'm just like, okay, I see what's going on. This is pretty dope. So right now, it's not even just. So I'll start by saying that it's. I don't think it's fully the executives. It's
mm-hmm.
kind of more complex, and I kind of also to answer your other question. I do think there's a gap between the executives and the artists, and I think a big part of that is it goes both ways. I would say at this, as an artist myself, I would say it's a little more on the artists,
Yeah,
and I'm not even trying to give the executives too much credit because there are some executives that are a little dismissive towards artists.
yeah,
But being even in my position at BNA, like just for 2 seconds, having to be that middle person between my staff and the community, and like maybe like a shareholder, a stakeholder, or somebody that's like investing in BNA, like
yeah,
a big studio, like having to be that middleman, even for a little bit, I understand more of the pressure I think executives are under,
yeah,
especially in a time where animation is not making a profit.
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of them are actually championing like a lot of shows. Like a lot of them
yeah.
believe in these projects. They're going to their higher ups being like, "Can we please make this?" And the higher ups are like, we have no money." And the executives are like, "Okay, I don't know what to tell people, but I guess
Well,
I'm,
I'm
you know,
curious. Do you find, or have you come across, like your peers or other artists that are uh, kind of now taking the reins and creating their own ideas now that we have streaming platforms and all these platforms about getting their own stories? And I mean, as we've talked about, and as you know, in this industry, it is all about relationships and who you know. And I found that everybody knows everybody, right? It's at least worked with you,
yes,
gone to school with you, or something like that. So everybody's kind of, even if they are at a studio, still working on their own kind of short or idea or something like that. Do you find that more artists are now, since we have these tools, have these channels, have these outlets to even fund our idea if we want to? Do you feel more artists and creators are thinking along those lines now, especially as studios are being erratic about keeping employees and all of that kind of stuff?
yes, I think it's happening. I also think it's great. It's I would say it's long overdue. It's just really. amazing to see. It's the stuff that makes me excited.
Yeah.
And also, like, that's something that BNA is partially doing right now. We just greenlit, well, we just launched our artist fellowship,
Yeah.
which is like a 6-month short film program where we give like directors a little bit of funding, just to make their like vision, like a 6-month
Yeah.
quick scalable project. But I will say something that we're looking for in the fellowship, and also something that we do talk about at BNA a lot when it comes to these indie
Mm-hmm.
studios. It's really important, and this is like, I'm in the unpopular camp for this one. It's like, I feel like I feel like just making your own thing itself takes a lot of privilege and timing, because a lot of people don't have the safety nets to sit there and make like an animated pilot.
Oh yeah.
It
No.
takes an immense amount of work, and that work does get shorter. You can kind of truncate that process if you have exposure to an actual pipeline, like if you worked in the industry.
Yeah.
So it kind of creates the same. I always use Don Bluth as an example. He's, product of his time. The 70s were very, very different, but he's a great example for how you do it properly. And a lot of people don't understand how he actually did it, what his plan was. Don Bluth was, before Land Before Time and Secret of Nim and all that, he was taking his time studying when he was an animator and story artist at the Walt Disney Animation Studios. He was there on and off, but like for the span of like 10 years, he knew he wanted to like make his own stuff.
Yeah.
But he studied, he gained relationships, he made friends, and once he was ready to finish his independent short film, he like left the studio and took like animators with him, and they worked out of his garage for like months,
Yeah.
cell animation, and that's actually what got. There was that short that caught the attention of Spielberg,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, wait a minute, we got to give this guy a movie." And but he understood how the pipeline worked. That's why
Yeah.
they made a high quality film. It had names attached, people that already knew how to do a pipeline, so you could bring those people into a movie. So, and I see that even with like projects like Kiana's a project, Pretty Please Don't Want to Be a Magical Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone loves it, and they should. It's fantastic, But I always like to point out that like Kiana's been working in the industry even before I have.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she's been learning a lot, and you can
Yeah.
see that in the way she put together
Yeah.
her project.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I say that like BNA is kind of there to give folks that don't have that proximity, like we can teach them like, okay, well, if you don't know how to make a film work
Yeah.
or how to
Yeah.
make an indie, we can teach you.
I laugh because that's kind of one of the reasons I do color motion, because it gives me proximity to people in the
Yes,
industry, the people in industry.
that's good.
Because, like I said, I'm not industry. I tell people I'm not. I'm more commercial. My motion graphics and animation and things I do is more commercial for corporate. So I'm not in the industry like all my guests are. But again, I know proximity matters. And I learn again, understand the pipeline, so that, if I ever do decide I want to put my own project together, okay, I know I need to get this person. I know I need to get a show where I know the kind of the pieces of what needs to go in place, and know that, hey, I'm not the one to do it. So I know I got to bring people in that have worked in the industry, that understands that thing that I'm asking them to do. So I would always say I would love the chance to work at Pixar or an animation studio to understand the pipeline of, taking a project from beginning to end, from concept to idea, animation type of thing. So definitely that saves you a lot of headache and makes the end product good when you
Yes.
understand the process of what it takes to get involved.
Yeah, it's partially why like I believe strongly in this too. I mean, some people might disagree, but I do think this is something there's something to be said about the studio system. Like I think in this era right now, everyone's kind of, you know, excited about the indie space. And everyone's like, "Oh, let's just make our own thing. Let's do this, let's do that." And it's like, again, like what I tend to do, especially with BNA, is I'm like, okay, I'm like, hold on, pause. Let's get your resume clean. Let's get let's try to get you an internship, at least an internship at one of the studios. Let's try to get you in, not because you need to stay at Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network your entire life, but like even just even after my internship at Disney TVA,
Yeah.
it gave me I was so much more prepared,
Oh yeah.
because I got to at least watch or shadow how character designers would work or storyboard artists,
Yeah.
you know,
You
and
had
once
actual
you take that,
practical experience goes trumps any type of school learning or anything like that. That's why they try and make it an actual studio experience when you're going, or production experience when you're going to schools like Savannah and some of those other schools. We want to give you a practical studio experience of what it's going to be like.
exactly, and that's actually I very much credit, which is interesting because like there's a lot of contention around the story department at Sheridan College where I went, but I credit my teacher Nancy Bayman
Hmm.
for giving I guess me that's proximity. Like I don't think she did it intentionally, but she really just sat there and was like she would tell us about her times at Disney. She
Yeah.
animated the Three Fates in Hercules. She worked on a Goofy movie,
Yeah.
tons of like 90s uh Disney films. And she in class she would just take moments and just talk about like
Yeah.
the little thing. She's like, oh yeah, there wasn't like you wouldn't get a second chance to pitch to Katzenberg if you messed it up. You know what I mean? So that's why like she
Yeah.
was very strict about how we pitched, holding the pitching stick properly, like
So
making
what
sure
did
our,
you pull from? I mean, as far as your thought process of that afterwards, what did you pull from those conversations of what she was just telling you it was actually like and things like that?
well, it ties back to my experience in high school. It's like it's a Shakespeare thing. It's like these things don't seem relevant, but they shape how what kind of professional you turn into. Like the little things Nancy was like a stickler about, like formatting your boards properly,
Mm,
speaking clearly, not waving the pitching stick. Like those are all things that massively signal what level you're at as a professional, more than just your art. You know, especially as a woman, she understood like how like she's perceived, and I
yeah,
don't think she meant it intentionally towards me, but I think she's also from New York, so maybe there's a
yeah,
little bit of that.
yeah,
Um, I think she understood that a lot of her students were not white men,
yeah,
so they were going to be looked a little differently.
yeah,
So she gave us a real baseline. So that basically told me I'd have to go into the industry, really paying attention to my P's and Q's, and coming more prepared than others and working a little harder.
yeah, yeah. No, definitely. Like you said, it's those, and I always say this too about brands. It's those brands that pay attention to the little details that make the biggest impact, type of thing,
Exactly.
and paying attention to the little details does go a long way. All right, above the average one. Good
Oh no.
job, Austin. We're extremely proud of you, Uncle Keith. All right, there.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Uncle
that.
Keith.
Appreciate
It's
you
my
showing up there, Uncle Keith. Awesome, Austin. Above the average one for sure. Mr. DeMille, appreciate you there, brother. Happy Saturday to you. Appreciate you tuning in, for sure. Um, Moving forward, you kind of touched on a few things that you're, wanting to kind of direct BNA towards. Where do you see BNA, positioning even more, say 5 years down the line, in in what BNA is doing and what they're trying to accomplish?
That's a great question. So, in the next 5 years, I see BNA kind of doing a couple of things. I see it partially as a mutual aid, like organization, like a real space where Black creatives of all kinds can
Mm-hmm.
come for like resources. We can help them. We can fund projects, and I see us having some sort of apprenticeship like pipeline with studios, indie or mainstream,
Yeah,
like really developing like pipelines at studios like Studio Moyo. Shout out to them. They're a new studio that was formed through the BNA Summit last year.
yeah,
And as they continue to grow, we can just feed them talent. They can be an incubator. Like BNA is just like, it can be a center in this web
yeah,
where we like branch out and we give
yeah.
people, you know, like a
Well, and see,
centerpiece.
that's the good thing, which brings me, I guess, to another question. As far as just all the other, I guess, organizations that are organizations of color. There are so many out there. Lixa doing great things for Latinas in animation, AIA, Asians in animation. You do you see where somewhere down the world collectively coming together on some type of big project or big initiative, because we're all, I guess, trying to achieve the same kind of thing as far as representation and diversity within this industry that we're in.
Yeah, I definitely see an area for us to collaborate. I think it might look very different, in particularly in 5 years, and I think that's probably for the better. So I actually know the directors from those organizations. They're good friends of mine. Shout out to Brian, um, Lexi from Asian Animation,
Yeah,
Mags from Lexia.
I
Like
get them
they're
too.
good friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey,
No.
well, hey, you've been putting in work. I have been messaging Brian and the two for Lixa to come on.
Okay.
Really would
Yeah.
love to get them on. Actually, I've had Jeanette on, and I've had Alicia. Um, come on. That's actually who kind of turned me on to Lixa. I've been to a
Great.
couple of their meetings, but definitely want to, and that's part of the whole narrative of the color of motion. Having creators of color, animators of color,
Right.
creators of color in this industry come on and share their experiences of what they're doing, and what their organizations are trying to do, and how we can kind of come together, because I do feel collectively we have a great
Yeah,
power.
we do, and I think that power comes with intention.
Yeah,
So with I mean, I can use like sort of the big three as like to start, like Asian animation, Lexi, and Black and Animated. We have a lot of overlap. Where I would say our power comes is actually in how our goals are different. I won't like oversimplify all of our missions because they are very like nuanced, but I can say that all of our problems are all our problems are different.
yeah.
So it's like because of that we can't really come together as one and just be like our mission is diversity animation because that doesn't really have anything measured.
Well, how
you know
would you see? Because you say you see it totally in kind of a totally different way. Well, how would you kind of envision it? In in what way, if at all?
I think we would be a part of like a collective like brain trust and almost like a I don't know, maybe even like a some sort of consultation, bucket. Because I think what the studios need is, they need I won't say like, you know, DEI orgs to sort of be on deck for anything specific, but when it comes to if they have a project they're green lighting, like for
Yeah,
example, if they have something that's more, Latino inspired or Chicano inspired, like that can be more like okay, let's bring in Lexia to like talk about this. And not just
right.
like be a fly on the wall, but like let's get you involved.
Oh,
Let's pay you to like help us consult, let's find your talent pool. Same thing with BNA, same thing with Asians animation. And
yeah,
even when it comes to I think issues when it like just broad issues in terms of how employees are being treated at the studio, if they have
yeah,
people who are immigrants, if they have people that are dealing with workplace issues, that's where we come in and give
yeah.
like a little bit of like, you know, a little bit of aid. You know what I
So
mean?
let me ask you: do you feel this time now any different than say earlier in BNA, especially during this political time that we're in now, and again the pressure that DEI and all the organizations within inclusiveness are getting under attack. Do you feel any kind of pressure or feel any little different on just how you have to move through, what BNA does?
Oh yeah, I've had to I've had to grow up pretty quick in this role, and like I said before, like this is not I don't think it's inherently a bad thing, but being a black org, particularly being an artist led black org, we have a very unique set of challenges because we are like we have to be extra careful how we walk in these spaces as black folks.
Yeah,
And particularly because I am on the younger side, I'm already like, you know, positioned to be not taken seriously.
yeah,
So I usually have to come twice as prepared. And in this climate, like BNA doesn't really have the luxury of how do I put it? Like scaling back as much because our community is almost like our needs are deeper,
deeper.
than
Yeah,
other community. Like we like there are people that like it's not even about a job anymore. It's just about like I need a place to go to feel safe. I need a
yeah,
place to go where I know I'm not going to be taken advantage of. I know I'm going to be heard. I know that I'm going to be taken care of. Because BNA has a very, like, I told you about this before. We have an application process to be a member.
Yeah.
And it's not like we reject people for like arbitrary reasons. It's really just so we know, hey, you're coming to the space. We have a code of conduct. We're gonna take care of you. You take care of everybody else.
Yeah.
So we keep it like we're not gonna have random executives in the Discord to like monitor you. Like we're very stringent about our policies and our protocol, so people
Yeah.
feel safe and they know from the events we make, we treat everything with that same level of care and compassion. So because of that, we've had to really, I've had to really dig my heels in when it comes to,
Sure.
it's
Which I
yeah.
guess
You
is
go
the
ahead.
case of any organization or person running an organization. Sometimes you do have to dig your heels in some issues and things.
Yeah, like there are certain things I will like. I tend to be a pretty collaborative person. Like I'll usually compromise. Like even if it's something I teach my staff this too. Like sometimes you got to take the L. Like you can't win everything. You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
just, you know, it's
Everything's
not about
strategic. Yeah. You know.
yeah. It's not always about today.
Yeah.
It's about like where do you see yourself like 6 months from now, 10 months,
Yeah.
and a good tool I always ask myself is if it's not, you know, how do I put it? If it's only impacting me and nobody else, I can usually pick that battle smarter. Like I don't need to fight it. However, where I dig my heels in very deep is if it's going to affect my staff or any BNA members.
Yeah.
So that's when I become, uncompromising.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. It could be a CEO from a studio. It could be, you know, another
Yeah.
black person that wants to collaborate. I'm just like, if you're not actively thinking about the care, the ethics and the compassion towards this community, like you're going nowhere near it.
Yeah.
We're in a very precarious situation where trust is massive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. No,
people trust BNA, and
yeah.
I want to keep it that way.
I totally 100% with you on that. It's what I'm trying to cultivate with just the community of the color of motion, a place where people can feel safe and trust the space that they're in, for sure. I'm trying to be mindful. Like I was telling Austin,
That's a
time goes
grandma.
by quick. We are already past the hour. We're a little over an hour. And I know he had a hard out, so I am trying to be mindful of his time. So as I bring this train into the station here. I'm going to first read this. Beverly Faber 9188. Proud of you, my darling. She's got to be family. Love you much. Grab a
Yeah,
bear.
that's
Grab a
so
bear.
funny. Thank you, Grandma. Oh my god.
Hey,
It's,
I
it's my
appreciate
dad's
you.
it's my dad's birthday today too.
Oh, all
Hey, happy
right.
birthday,
Happy
Dad.
birthday. Happy birthday. I appreciate all the fam tuning in and supporting Austin. What kind of stories and animation are you kind of eager to tell? I mean, you kind of work on one. I know some people, you said you love manga. Obviously,
Yes.
in Disney, it's more children's related. What kind of stories or animations are you like really excited to kind of jump into and really dig your teeth into?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm actually in the process of writing my first graphic novel right now. I drafted chapter one, and it's so hard to explain. You have to kind of see it, because it's YA fantasy, but it's an interesting blend of like shonen, like martial arts, science fiction,
Yeah,
and like yeah, it's basically like a mix of like it's basically Batman, but like in a sort of like Soul Eater
yeah.
like
Now, are
universe.
you
It's very
leaning
like
more towards the adult style storytelling and humor, or more the adult style animation like manga is, or
oh no, it's more well interesting. Manga is funny enough. Shonen manga was meant for like young boys, but sorry, my dog's being annoying. I told you she would be, but no, it's my style tends to be a little softer, as you can see from my art like
yeah, yeah. And
samples.
we are going to
Like
show some of Austin's art here while he's kind of talking about your style. Um,
yeah, yeah, no, exactly. It's like my the comic I'm making. It looks a little softer, but the story actually the comic's kind of more in this style that you're seeing here. It's a little
Mm,
more manga-ish, but a little
yeah.
cartoon soft. And yeah, I like telling stories with deep emotional arcs for sure, like manga.
Obviously, you
Something a little,
practice life drawing and drawing skills, which is a good thing. I need to do more of that life
oh yeah.
drawing
I
and
was
skills.
I was in life drawing all the time, particularly at Sheridan. We had this thing called Extra Life. They had offered life drawing every day from 6 to like I think 9 p.m. regardless of
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah.
So
Do you
I
still
was
find
that's partially
time to? Do you still find time to kind of do those little, you know,
like
pieces, drawings, doodles, yourself, or those
yeah.
moments of doing life drawing and really intentional skill training, I guess.
Yeah, not so much like in-person life drawing, just because when the pandemic happened, I lost one of my closest spaces for life drawing. But I do still practice. I mostly do people sketching when I'm out and about, which is still life
Yeah.
drawing. It's not figure drawing necessarily, but I miss it. I miss figure drawing. It's one of my favorite things, and I want to get back to it as soon as I can. We
Well,
all sign up for a class.
I think, like you said, those moments of just being out, and I'm trying to keep myself in the habit of having a sketchbook, just carrying a book with me, so that you have those random moments of just doodling and throwing something in there. But I
Oh
love the
yeah.
style. Um, what did you think of uh, Flow when it won the Oscar? It was a very different style animation, obviously. Um,
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. And again, I think it was pretty profound because it also told people you didn't need to like spend $200 million on an animated movie. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, yes, like if you had that kind of budget, you were able to pay people like salaries to buy a house. That'd be great.
yeah,
But like, Flow really focused on the narrative. They were they had very little to lose as well, which is really nice. Like they knew they could just they're like let's shoot big. Let's
yeah,
see what
yeah.
happens. You know,
Nothing to lose. Yeah, nothing to lose. Hey, when you swing for the fences and got nothing to lose, you're a dangerous person for sure.
exactly. Exactly. I was super proud of them. I think I was there. I was at the Annies when they like I think they like won like
Yeah,
I don't know how many things they won.
yeah.
But
Did you go to Lightbox? Or did you go to Lightbox?
I this is actually the first year I did not go. I sat it
Mm,
out this year. I was tired. I was like, let me not. Let me
yeah.
like not be in a crowd right now.
Well, with Black and as I kind of bring the train into the station, with what you're doing with Black and Animated, and being in the industry and the events that BNA puts on and that you attend, what's kind of your overall feeling that you get from people in the industry of how it is right now? I mean, what are kind of artists and creators really kind of saying and really concerned about? Is there major concern or thing that you're kind of hearing?
That's a great question. And I would say it really depends on who you ask. There are so many different camps of individuals right now. In animation specifically, I could talk about film and Hollywood as a whole, but I'll talk specifically about animation.
Yeah,
And this, I think, part why it's so difficult is because nobody's operating from the same point of view. Like everyone knows the industry's bad, but you have some folks that have been employed since before the pandemic, and they haven't lost a job, so
yeah,
they have a very different perspective. Then you have the people that kind of fell out of the industry, like 2021, 2022, and have had a hard time getting back in.
yeah,
Veterans included.
yeah,
And then you have the folks that haven't broken in yet.
yeah,
So you'll get, and that's oversimplifying it to three, but that's just to say, I find that the folks who are trying to break in are they don't have any idea. There's nothing. They're just like,
yeah,
how do I even do this? And I have to tell them like, you would have a job by now if it was normal.
yeah,
Like it's not even you. Like I myself, you know, I felt I didn't even follow the industry. I just like I got laid off from Cartoon Network in 2022, and it took me a year and a half before I even got another like full time offer.
really,
So it was like, yeah, and it's like, and I was like rising pretty quickly in my early career. I went from
yeah,
Disney to Netflix to Cartoon Network, and I was getting multiple offers. Then overnight, I wound up getting like, it was
yeah.
crickets.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and
Well, this
I
last.
mostly go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Now go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, no, no. I was going to say the last camp, with those that have been employed, since pre-pandemic, it's like I think they're trying to find a way to be helpful, but again, know they don't have any answers. Like nobody has
Yeah.
answers,
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
makes it tricky.
Well, what I was gonna say, this last question I want to ask you is: so, what do you tell somebody that's just thinking about, this is something I want to do, or thinking about, they're looking at schools and they're thinking about coming into the industry? What do you tell that person about, how it is now and how it will be by the time they get into this industry, kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I told them that there's some things they can't control and some things they can. You will never be able to control what the industry does. It's always been a little weird. It's been shaky. It goes through cycles. This
Yeah.
isn't even the first time it's done something like this. This is the worst it's been, but this is an echo of history. And things you can control your skill and how prepared you show up. So,
Yeah.
especially what I tell like my members and staff on BNA is like, you may not get a job right now because this place is not hiring, but you can control what your resume looks like. You can control how you show up. You can control how you study in your craft. You can control how much you work on it.
Yeah.
That stuff you have control over. So that's what you can hang on to because ultimately it's going to be your point of view and your skill that keeps you and your creative wheels flowing
Yeah.
or moving.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's such a great note to close the show out on. And, like I always say, I got to drop
I love
yeah, any chance I get to drop a bomb, I like dropping bombs.
that.
For
Yes.
sure. But
No, it's good.
no, like I said, it was such a great note to kind of bring the train into the station on. As I mentioned, I do want to be mindful of your time. I do know you did say you had a heart out, so I appreciate you so much, Austin, for coming on. You know
Thank you.
now that you are a color motion fan and always welcome. I really would like to get you and Monique on. Really do I think that would be a great episode. I have to reach out to her and
Yeah.
mention that to her. But yeah, we're both so color motion being is in such alignment in what we're trying to do. So that's why this was such a treat having you
Yeah.
on the show, and can't thank you enough for sharing.
No, thank you. I super appreciate it. I'm honored to be here. And yeah, you have my contact. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm not going to be a
Awesome.
stranger. You don't be a stranger.
Definitely,
You know,
definitely. Everybody, I know you enjoyed this as much as I have. Please, again, help me thank our special guest and family member now, Mr. Austin Faber, for blessing us with his presence. Thank you, Austin. I would say hang out in the green room so I can talk to you, but I know you got to hide out. I will message you and shoot you a message over the weekend. But thank you, brother, for showing up.
thank you, Don. Super appreciate it. All right. I
Awesome.
guess I'll say my goodbyes.
Awesome.
Goodbye,
Awesome.
everybody.
Awesome. Appreciate everybody. This has been a great episode. Again, Austin, we probably went longer, but again, Austin had a heart out because he had another engagement in in a few minutes. So had a heart out. But as a family, he's always welcome to come back on. And like I said, I definitely want to have him and Monique back on. I think that would be a great episode for sure. Everybody, I appreciate you, tuning in as always. Like I said, we got 3 more episodes to go before we close out season 5. He says, thank you. Yes, thank you, family, for tuning in and supporting your kin. That's always good for sure. Mr. DeWine, I always appreciate you. Again, you and Demille, make sure you send me a picture of your mug, of your prize that you won last week. Like I said, we've got a couple of more episodes left to go. This has been an amazing season 5. Next week is going to be no exception. Super looking forward to next week's guest, family member coming back on the show, Mr. Barry Gaines. indie horror film director and founder of Gamescom Film Festival. So I will be doing Back Out Again this year, doing a special 2-day live event at the festival again. Had so much fun last year, so I'm looking forward this year doing it December 4th and 5th. So next week we will be talking about Gamescom and all the great guests and people he has coming. And we'll be talking film. You know, he's been doing some film reviews. I've done a few, checked out a few. So looking forward to sitting down and talking film as well. All right. Thank you so much for giving me just a little bit of your time. I cannot express enough how much I can't do this without you, the viewers, and the special guests that come by and grace us with their presence. Have an amazing rest of the week. Have an amazing rest of the weekend, and have a productive rest of the week. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Cheers. It handles it pretty good.